So another thing I wanted to point out, for those of you who use FE and sometimes don't get why, especially with an FP like me, an ENFP or I guess INFP like me, we like if you like try to interact with the thing that we are saying makes us sad, you're like, wait, like I tried to be helpful, but I just asked a simple question and now they're like really upset. I was thinking about this the other day and I realized what we want is a response, not an answer. So like if you feel like we're asking some like core like philosophical sort of issue like usually like how it sounds in our heads, like for example if like a boy rejects me and I've been rejected so much that it just like hurts to think about like yet another person rejecting me, I'll be like, why does no one like me or something, and then like some person trying to use FETI will be like, oh, like maybe you just don't put yourself out there enough. And it's kind of like, I actually don't really want to hear an answer like that is that like precise, because I don't want to think that I'm doing anything wrong. Because when I think, because I don't detach my identity from my actions, because the reason I don't put myself out there, like, it's kind of like if I were to do that, like put myself out there, like it would be like an identity violation essentially. So okay, like to give a more specific example, like this is a question I actually ask often because it's very hard for me to like, like feel something for people and like want to actually put effort into dating. And a lot of FETI users think that I'm just too picky or something like that. And they won't say like you're too picky, they'll just go like, have you tried to give more people a chance? And they're not saying you're too picky, but I'll hear it as that. Like I hear it as a series of judgments of like, you do things incorrectly and you're stupid for not knowing the correct answer. While for FE and TI, what a given that they operate on is you're not supposed to know the answer to all your problems because life is not meant to be lived that way. But what's actually helpful is if someone responds to the emotion I'm feeling as opposed to the question I seem to be asking. Because for me, like, it doesn't feel like actually answering the why is going to make me feel any better in that moment. So it's more like I want someone to be like, yeah, like, damn, like, it does suck that it's hard for you to get, like, to get into a relationship. That is a response. It's not an actual answer to like, why does no one like me? Because I'm kind of crying out because that is like kind of like the last expression of the emotion that I can totally muster. And to answer that question kind of enforces this feeling of like there's something wrong with me. And so I think it's more like I want someone to acknowledge that I'm in pain by reacting to whatever it is that put me there, which is the fact that I haven't been in a relationship. Now, diagnosing why and actually validating the emotions that have led me to stay in this captivity, that's a different story. So a version of like, oh, like, like, okay, it's really difficult for me to like honestly try to break this down because I feel like I'm trying to not like also keep cutting myself off by thinking of all the possible responses to such as like all of my claims. But I think that like often like it sounds like someone's like, oh, like, but the answer to your problem should be so simple. And I feel like when FETI users say like, oh, maybe you should try to put yourself out there more, like what I don't tell them or like give a hint about is that it is very hard for me to justify to myself putting myself out there with people that I don't actually feel a lot of things for, because I'll very reflexively like write things off. And so the mechanism is like, it's almost like when they say that, subconsciously what may come up is, don't you think I've already thought of that before? Of like, don't you think I already have noticed that I'm like pickier than like a lot of people? And the thing is, they really have not noticed that I know that. And so it will create this sort of like, I will suddenly see them as like the enemy, where like you don't actually understand me and all the intricate reasons and justifications why. I think FETI users really operate on less information than we as FIT users realize. And so we have to be very prepared, I think, to actually logically interact with why we do what we do and explain and justify a lot of this. And if we're looking for like someone to just read our mind, which we often are, it's very difficult to have an actual productive conversation. So I think that like a lot of the time it's far simpler where an FETI user, the best thing you can do is be like, oh, like what facts are you reacting to that are causing you so much pain? Like, please list them out for me. And we don't mind saying the facts. And then just you empathizing with those facts can help us. Or saying like, would you like me to give you like some feedback? Which sometimes can sound a little bit like a threat on accident. So don't say that actually, I take that back. But I think the main thing is that, like one of my earlier videos, you should figure out like what we're thinking about that might be thinking incorrectly, and don't be so eager to immediately correct it. More like get acquainted with it. It's like playing with a cat. You have to like kind of pet it, like let it trust you. Our FI is very naturally distrusting at times, especially if you aren't an FI user. So I think subconsciously we might expect you to say the wrong thing. So I think the point is to come at it letting them know that you do not have all the information and you don't purport to know their experience. And there is so much that they haven't shared with you that maybe they think they have. So I would say that if you ever feel like frustrated with an FIT user, it's probably they are assuming that you know more than you do. So a blanket statement of, I don't know exactly what you're feeling is actually quite helpful, because I think that like it puts us back in the perspective of, oh, this person isn't the enemy. They just literally can't comprehend what I'm going through, which makes us villainize you way less. So yeah, like, let me know what you think of this video, and it's meant to complement the previous one about how to help NFPs, but I'm just going to keep trying to keep the dialogue going about all of this in the hopes that it'll hopefully help you all have better interactions with one another.